The dark truth. Black homeless man, mocked for food, was a legend in the race. In the heart of the city, where shadows danced with the flickering streetlights, a figure hunched beneath a tattered blanket. Michael Jones, a name few knew, yet his presence was a haunting echo in the corners of alleyways. As night fell, laughter erupted from a nearby bar, a mocking cackle that cut through the chill like a knife. They pointed at him, their eyes sparkling with disdain as they threw scraps of their feast in his direction. What they didn't know was that this man, slumped in despair, was once a titan on the racing circuit, his feet a blur on the asphalt, legs pounding like thunder. Every evening, beneath the neon glow, they jeered at his makeshift meals. Old newspapers fluttered around him like fallen leaves as he picked at a half-eaten sandwich. "Look at him," one of the onlookers sneered. "Once a champion, now reduced to crumbs." But Michael held secrets that could snap the very fabric of their reality. What were the chances that the man they mocked was capable of speed so fierce it left competitors gasping for breath? Whispers of a mystical past swirled in the air, tinged with both pity and intrigue as the laughter echoed, and the city moved on. An unusual hush fell over the crowd. A sudden uncertainty punched through the air, igniting a flicker of curiosity. No one understood the weight of his story. No one could see through the grime to the glory buried beneath. The tales surrounding Michael were thick with mystery. Legends said he once faced down the very best, wielding sheer willpower and unbreakable spirit. What could have turned a champion into a figure scorned on the streets? Was there a darker reason behind his fall from grace? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as hope seemed lost, a figure emerged. An old friend, standing in the distance, eyes wide, scanning the ground as if he could read the weight of history in Michael's despair. Could it be? A chance to unearth what truly happened? The darkness surrounding him lifted like a shroud, revealing flickers of brilliance and pain. The air buzzed, and the tension ran like a current through the gathered crowd. What secrets remained buried inside that weary soul? As he prepared to confront his past, a single question hung in the air: would he rise or remain hidden in the shadows of those mocking voices? Michael squinted against the harsh light haloing the figure approaching him, the familiar gait sending sparks of recognition through his exhausted mind. It was Marcus, his old trainer, the man who had once believed in him when all others only saw a fleeting shadow. As Marcus drew closer, Michael's heart thrummed with a mix of fear and hope, a tight knot forming in his chest. "Michael," Marcus's voice was rough, but a shimmer of warmth clung to every syllable. "What happened to you, man? You don't belong here." Michael looked away, ashamed, scratching at the ground. The laughter from the bar still echoed in his ears, a haunting reminder of how far he had fallen. He gulped, the lump in his throat refusing to budge, and only silence filled the air between them. The crowd buzzed around them, anticipation crackling like electricity. Would they witness a reunion of the champions, or more misery? "Tell me," Marcus pressed, kneeling to meet Michael's eyes. "What is going on?" A wave of memories surged through Michael's mind: the thrill of racing, the roar of the crowd, the victory he had once known, tainted by the turning of fate. "They wouldn't understand," he whispered, fighting back tears. "Damn it, they don't need to understand." Marcus shot back, his voice low but urgent. "You're still the same man. There's a fire inside you. I know it." The passion in Marcus's voice ignited something deep within Michael, spurring him to speak. The words spilled out, raw and jagged. "It was the accident. I lost everything. My title, my friends, my mind." The bar's laughter shifted from mockery to a buzz of intrigue. Listeners were leaning in, hearing whispers of something much deeper than they had anticipated. A single, sharp breath escaped Marcus's lips. "That wasn't your fault, Mike. You can't let them win like this." Hesitation washed over Michael. Could he reclaim the man he used to be? The warmth of his memories clashed with the frigid reality that engulfed him. He was lost, adrift in a sea of shadow and doubt. Just then, a sudden scream sliced through the night. A woman stumbled from the bar, her voice high with terror. "Help! Someone please! There's a fight." Heads snapped toward the commotion, and Michael felt a primal instinct stir within him, a reminder of the adrenaline that once propelled him across the finish line. The crowd surged, drawn by the chaos. Marcus grabbed Michael's arm. "Let us go." Before Michael could think, he found himself moving, feet hitting the ground with a surprising vigor. A pulse of energy surged through him as he pushed toward the throng, spurred by something he thought was long gone: the will to fight, the need to confront. But as they reached the scene, the sight brought him to a halt. A group of rough-looking men were circling a young man, fists clenched, faces twisted in fury. The jumbled sounds of anger, fear, and the sudden urge to fight filled the air, as if the city itself was holding its breath. "Michael, this could be your moment," Marcus shouted, a spark of reckless hope lighting his eyes. "You have to do something. Show them who you really are." Michael's heart raced. Memories of racing flashed in his mind, the culmination of power and finesse. But now, facing the crowd, sweat coated his palms, and doubt crept back in. Could he really step back into the light after living so long in darkness? As the conflict escalated, a choice loomed before him. Would he run toward danger, or retreat to the safety of obscurity? Time felt suspended, each second stretching, and with it, the rising tension thrummed through the air. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. What would he decide? And in that electrifying silence, surrounded by the chaos unfolding, the question lingered. Could a fallen champion rise again? Or would he remain a mockery, forever out of reach? The chaos swirled around Michael, a suffocating mix of fear and energy that echoed in his ears. He could feel the weight of Marcus's gaze, a silent plea wrapped in urgency. The young man in the center, trapped and terrified, was a reflection of everything Michael had lost: a shot at vindication, a chance to reclaim the spark of his former self. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. The shadows of doubt crept back, whispering taunts lodged deep in his brain. "You're nothing now. Just a joke." The sneers from the bar invaded his thoughts, those laughing voices reminding him of his failures. But beneath the layers of despair, the fire Marcus had ignited flickered again, fierce and alive. "Mike, now?" Marcus shouted, breaking through the noise. The urgency in his voice was a lifeline. Michael moved, an instinct deeper than thought propelling him forward. Before his mind could second-guess him, he erupted into the crowd. The rough men turned, their movements jolting and aggressive as they adjusted their focus toward him. "You want to fight?" Michael shouted, his voice rising over the din. "Then let us fight." The shrieks of surprise rippled through the onlookers. He felt the wobble of his knees, adrenaline coursing like a shockwave through him. The familiar rush ignited his senses, and for the first time in years, he felt alive. The lead aggressor smiled, revealing a jaded grin. "You think you can take us on, homeless freak?" Instantly, fury boiled up inside Michael. Their mockery was a mirror held up to his own self-doubt. He wouldn't allow it anymore. The young man at the center gasped, visibly shaking as the tension rose. Michael could see the fear glistening in the boy's eyes, drawing strength from their shared desperation. Michael puffed his chest out, ignoring the pangs of insecurity. "You don't know a thing about me. I'm not afraid of you." In a split second, the thug lunged, throwing a fist in a wild swing. Michael dodged just in time, the air slicing past him. His instincts kicked in, and suddenly he was shifting, weaving between blows, movements sharp and practiced. The crowd gasped, their eyes widening as they witnessed his unexpected agility. "Fight back," Marcus urged from the sidelines, excitement blasting through the tension. Michael's heart thumped louder. It felt surreal, every punch igniting the embers of his past. He swung back, the hard contact ringing in his ears, the impact echoing like a distant memory of victory. He danced around the chaos, striking with renewed purpose. But as he pressed forward, the numbers overwhelmed him. The thugs quickly banded together, and soon, it was 2 against 1. Their fists struck hard, bruising him as breaths burned in his lungs. He stumbled back, catching a glimpse of Marcus's face, worry etched deep. "Get up, Mike." The fight turned brutal, and Michael spiraled into a web of doubt. Had he done the right thing? Where was the glory in trying to save someone when he was losing himself again? In one final surge, he pushed through the pain, connecting once more. The world faded, and in that moment, he fought not just the men surrounding him, but the shadows haunting his past. Then a loud crack. A fist flew from nowhere, slamming into his side. Pain blazed through him, and he fell, hitting the ground hard. Falling felt like regression, the darkness around him whispering all the things he already feared. The atmosphere shifted. His vision blurred as faces loomed over him, concern mixing with what seemed like anticipation. Where had the adrenaline gone? "Get up, Michael!" Marcus yelled again, but this time, a new voice joined in. "It's not over." It was the young man from before. He rushed to Michael's side, shaking him gently. "You didn't fight for nothing, you can stand again. We're not alone." Michael felt the heat of those words penetrate the cold emptiness he had endured. Together, could they defy the fate that haunted them both? As he began to rise, the distant sounds of sirens echoed down the street, slicing through the chaos like a sliver of hope. Would he be too late to embrace the fight, or was this just the beginning of a different kind of race? And as the sirens closed in, the question hung in the air. Could this battle be the spark igniting the pathway back to the glory he thought was lost? The moment Michael pushed himself up from the ground, the shift was palpable. The air around him crackled with a mix of adrenaline and the stinging remnants of fear. He met the eyes of the young man, who stood close, a fierce energy radiating from him. It was an unspoken bond, one forged in the heat of struggle, and it ignited a newfound strength within Michael. "Let us do this," Michael shouted, his voice rough but resolute. The crowd had stretched around them, a cocoon of spectators holding their breath. Time slowed as he straightened, shaking off the dizziness and anchoring himself in the moment. The thugs, having regained their bearings, advanced again, their brute confidence swelling in the wake of his earlier fall. But the look in Michael's eyes spoke volumes, now defiance, a spark that screamed louder than their laughter. "What are you waiting for?" he growled, pushing through the pain as he shifted into a fighting stance. The world narrowed until it felt like just him and the thugs. Every bruise pulsed with fire, fueling the onslaught of rebellion he felt surging within. The lead thug charged again, fists flying, but this time Michael was ready. He ducked, swerving just beneath the arc of his swing. In that instant, he remembered, this was more than just about him. The young man was watching, Marcus was pushing, and he wasn't fighting in isolation anymore. He was fighting for something greater. With a fierce uppercut, he landed a solid hit, feeling the jolt travel up his arm as the thug staggered back, shock painted on his face. A flicker of hope ignited. The crowd gasped in disbelief. This wasn't just some down-and-out vagrant. This was a fight unfolding before their very eyes. Echoes of the sirens grew louder, drowning out the chaos momentarily, their urgent wail merging with the pulse of his heart. It was time. No backing down now. Yet the tide quickly turned again. With a roar, the second thug tackled him to the ground. Suddenly, pain shot through Michael's chest as he struggled against the weight pressing him down. The air escaped him, and in that instant, fear threatened to chain him once more. But he wasn't alone. With a desperate surge of energy, he remembered the boy's words, their shared fight. "Get off him." The young man lunged, surprising everyone. He threw himself onto the thug, the sheer audacity of his actions a beautiful thing. Michael caught a glimpse of fierce determination in his eyes, a mirror of his own resolve. As the two twisted in a brutal scuffle, Michael seized the moment. He pushed against the ground and rolled, breaking free from his own constraints. Adrenaline flooded his system anew. Before he could think, he dove into the fray, throwing punches that landed like thunder on skin. Each connection sent ripples through the crowd. Gasps turned into shouts. "Fight back. You got this." The encouragement swelled around him, lifting him higher as the adrenaline raced. But then, a darker realization gripped his mind. Who was he really fighting? The thugs were an embodiment of his past failures, but they were also a reflection of a world that had pushed him aside. As the scuffle intensified, one of the thugs cracked a sly smile, glinting like a blade. "You think you're a hero? You're nothing. Just a washed-up loser." The words sank deep, but something clicked. Wasn't that what he believed too? The very doubt that had held him captive for so long now felt like rising fire in his veins. With each punch, each shout of encouragement, he beat back the demons that had hunted him. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, not just to reclaim his identity, but to forge a new path forward. And then, in a split second of clarity, he saw the small crowd around him, faces that hadn't turned in disgust, but in unity. They were there. They believed in him. As sirens blared closer, illuminating the chaos with flashing lights, a sudden jolt of uncertainty returned. Would help arrive in time? Would the world outside still see him as just another forgotten soul when all this was over? Michael. Marcus's voice cut through the haze. Again, breaking through the noise. Keep fighting. You're more than they think. The truth of those words anchored him. He could be more than just a fighter. He could be a catalyst for change. Together with the boy, they surged forward in a final desperate push. But then, a shadow from the corner of his eye, a third thug emerged, unnoticed, fists raised high, ready to strike. Time seemed to freeze again in that heart-stopping moment. Would Michael see the punch coming, or would this be the blow that sent him spiraling back into darkness once again? The question lingered heavily in the air. The blow hit like a freight train, a brutal reminder of the stakes. Michael barely managed to pivot, catching just a glimpse of the assailant before the fist connected with his cheek. Pain exploded through his head, and he stumbled, shockwaves reverberating down his spine. The world around him blurred, but he could still hear the gasps of the crowd, the edge of their fear mixing with shouts for him to rise again. But before despair could grip him, he felt a small hand gripping his wrist. Marcus. Keep going, Michael. You're not alone. The reassurance reignited something inside. He inhaled sharply, hunger mixed with rage propelling him back to his feet. The figure of the third thug loomed larger than life. But there was something about that moment, the collective breaths threading through the throng, the fire in his belly that shifted his perspective. Adrenaline surged. He wasn't just reacting. He was a force. Ducking under another punch, he found his rhythm, weaving in closer. Come on, he shouted, no longer just to himself, but to Marcus and the rest who believed in him. Let us show them who we are. With a powerful kick, he struck the thug's knee, disrupting balance. The thug roared in anger, but Michael twisted, landing a clean jab to the side of his face that sent him spiraling sideways. The crowd erupted as if his victory had become theirs, too. Cheers filled the air, an unmistakable chorus urging him on. Every punch, every strike he landed wrapped around him like a protective cloak, binding him to those who were watching. Michael felt buoyed, riding the wave of belief as he turned his focus back to the remaining thugs. But the lead one wasn't done. The bruised thug, having recovered from Michael's earlier blow, approached with a sadistic grin. You think you can win? You're still just a street rat, he sneered, his voice laced with venomous scorn. This is your place. Something ugly twisted in Michael's gut. Those words had haunted him, echoed in the empty halls of his past. But now they felt like fuel to the fire. Not anymore. He barked, crossing the distance between them in a heartbeat. A flurry of fists followed, his heart pounding like a drum as he unleashed everything. He had one solid punch to the jaw sent the thug staggering, but it wasn't enough. Other faces surged in and out of his vision, each flash sparking clarity. Marcus, the crowd, the city he fought to reclaim. It was no simple battle. It was a declaration. He thought of the men and women who had passed him by, their eyes sliding over him like he was nothing. He thought of the streets he'd walked, the struggles that had become obstacles. This fight wasn't just about self-defense, it was about standing up against everything that had told him he was less. Another hit landed, and this time, the thug crumbled to the ground. The cheers rose to a frenzy. But in the wild rush of victory and disbelief, echoes of victory mingling with distant sirens, Michael saw movement again from the corner of his eye. The second thug, still on his feet, lunged once more, eyes wild with desperation. Michael's focus sharpened. Would he react in time? Or would the darkness come back to take him just as he had clawed his way up? As the figure hurtled toward him, time stretched again, and the crowd collectively held its breath, hanging between hope and despair. This was the moment, the pivot. Could Michael find what it took to push through one final time? What lay ahead felt more uncertain than ever. Michael's heart raced, and with a primal instinct, he sidestepped the incoming blow. The thug barely missed him, flailing forward and crashing into the ground with a heavy thud. The crowd erupted, a sheer wave of excitement coursing through them. But Michael didn't have time to bask in that moment. He could feel the danger simmering heavily in the air. The thug was already struggling to get back on his feet. Rage twisted across his face as he hurled himself towards Michael again. "You think you're better than me?" he shouted, voice thick with venom. "You're just a rat in a filthy alley." Michael's stomach twisted at the words. They echoed in his mind, threatening to unravel him. But he shook it off. He could feel the heat of the crowd's energy wrapping around him. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for everyone who had ever been dismissed, put down. With renewed determination, he took a step forward, fists clenched. "I'm more than what you say," he yelled back. He charged at the thug, who was wavering on his feet now, still fueled by anger and desperation. The crowd shifted, eyes wide, mouths agape, hearts racing alongside Michael's. Before he knew it, he rushed in, landing a brutal combination of strikes. Each punch landed with a palpable force, each one fueled by the weight of his past, the struggles of every person around him. He heard the crowd screaming. It was intoxicating. "Come on, Michael!" Marcus yelled from the sidelines, his excitement electrifying the air. The energy coursing through the crowd surged forward like a tidal wave, pushing Michael onward. The thug stumbled back, catching himself against the wall, panic creeping across his features. Michael saw fear flicker in his eyes, the realization that he could be defeated. In that moment, the entire world slipped away. All that remained was the fight and the roar of encouragement surrounding him. But then, like a tenacious weed, the thug dug deep within himself, rallying up for one last desperate attempt. With a primed snarl, he lunged forward again, this time swinging wildly. Michael ducked just in time, but he felt the whoosh of air slice across his cheek and knew he needed to end it now. He steadied himself, planted his feet, and when the thug overextended, Michael made a calculated move, a swift pivot, followed by a powerful strike to the gut. The thug doubled over, winded, and Michael pressed his advantage. "Give up," he hollered, the weight of his own journey behind those words. But before he could land the finishing blow, a noise caught his ears. Someone was shouting in the crowd, their voice cutting through the cacophony. "Look out!" Michael's instincts kicked in, and he spun around. The first thug, the one he had knocked down earlier, was rising again, seething with vengeance, a metal pipe in hand, glinting ominously in the dimming light. In no time to think. Michael's heart thudded painfully against his chest. Could he fight them both? Was this how it would end? The air thickened with tension. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, screams blending into a desperate chorus, each one's panic amplifying the gravity of the moment. Michael turned back to the thug he was battling, adrenaline surging through him. What would happen next? He had to decide, fight or run. Time was slipping, and the stakes were higher than ever. What awaited him in the chaos? As Michael prepared for the worst, one last question ignited in his mind. Would he be able to rise above one final time, or would the darkness finally claim him? The thug, pipe in hand, unleashed a cry that resonated deep within Michael, freezing his breath. The wildness in the thug's eyes spoke of desperation, a chaotic reminder of the danger lurking right in front of him. "Stay back," one voice echoed from the crowd, a girl clenching her fists, ready to step forward like they could fight back. Michael shook his head slightly. He couldn't let them get involved. This was his fight. With the second thug recovering, he had to act now. A flicker of doubt brushed Michael. Yet, something deeper ignited inside him, a fire fueled by every insult and every struggle he'd faced. The first thug took a step, brandishing the pipe like a weapon of despair. "Time to teach you a lesson," he snarled, eyes glinting with malice. Michael's heart thundered, pounding against his ribs as he braced himself. Could he handle them both? The whispers in his mind turned into shouts, taunting him. People like him were meant to fail. But that wasn't how he felt. Not today. He launched himself forward, dodging to the side of the pipe, coming down with lethal intent. The momentum carried him into the second thug, who was still recovering. Time slowed as he saw his opening. With a swift uppercut, Michael connected, his fist meeting flesh with a satisfying thud. The thug staggered back, but the first thug was still a looming predator, swinging again. Michael ducked just in time, but the pipe grazed his shoulder, sending a surge of pain through him. He felt the heat of the crowd, the chaotic energy turning into a collective heartbeat, rhythmically pushing him to stand tall. Deep breaths filled his lungs as he locked eyes with his adversaries. His body tingled with the promise of triumph. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice cracking through the tension. The energy shifted. For a split second, he saw hesitation flickering in their eyes. They weren't just thugs anymore. They were scared men, perhaps facing the monster that was Michael. Gathering his strength, he launched forward once more at the first thug, who was now distracted, swinging out at nothing. Michael moved fast, a blur of purpose, and made contact with a brutal kick to the thug's stomach. The force knocked him back, the pipe clattering to the ground with an echoing clink that resonated like a tolling bell. Yells peppered the air, excitement mixed with disbelief. Just then, the second thug lunged for Michael with renewed anger, yet it was as if time had slowed. Michael anticipated the move, sidestepping fluidly and using the thug's own momentum against him. He pushed hard, shoving him toward the alley wall, where he crumpled to the ground, stunned. Breathless, Michael turned back to the first thug, still recovering and gasping for air. He could feel the crowd's energy pulse around him, the raw power of hope igniting each heartbeat. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted movement. Several shadowy figures in the back of the crowd began to stir. They were watching closely, not for the fight, but something much darker simmered beneath the surface. As Michael steadied himself for the threat ahead, a rising panic settled deep in his gut. "Who were they?" "Michael, behind you," Marcus shouted, his voice barely managing to rise above the crowd. Michael whipped around just in time to see a glint of silver, another metal pipe arcing through the air, aimed directly at him. The moment hung in the air, and for the first time, doubt clawed at Michael's confidence. Just before it struck, he understood he had to make his choice. Would he brace himself for the impact or take one last risk? Could he defy the odds once more, or was this the beginning of his final stand? What hidden fate awaited him as chaos unfolded around them? The world narrowed down to that glinting pipe, slicing through the air like a dark omen. Michael had a split second to decide: stand and take the hit, or leap into the unknown. He chose the only path he could see. Adrenaline crackled through his veins as he sprang sideways, muscles tensing in a desperate attempt to avoid the blow. The pipe screamed past him, whistling through the air, but that wasn't the only danger. He could feel the energy shift behind him, the crowd gasping collectively. Witnessing the chaos unfurling into pure madness, he landed hard against the concrete, rolling to absorb the impact. The world spun for a moment, the audience fading from view as he redirected his focus. Breathing heavy, Michael surged back to his feet, scanning for his foes. The first thug was still on the ground, clutching his stomach, while the second thug hesitated, glancing around for support amidst the growing crowd. But the shadowy figures he had noticed before were edging closer. Their intentions twisted the air like a gathering storm. Flickers of doubt danced in Michael's mind. Were they here to help him, or to finish what the thugs had started? "Fight back, Michael!" someone yelled, shaking him from his thoughts. It was Marcus, his friend, voice laced with urgency. The second thug regained his confidence, charging at Michael with a furious growl. Michael felt the floor tremble beneath him, and an instinct kicked in. As the thug lunged forward, Michael ducked and weaved, feeling the thug's breath on his back. Time slowed again, and he turned to face his opponent just in time to catch the thug off guard. A swift kick to the shin brought the thug crashing down, and Michael took the moment to slide into a more favorable stance, fists clenched tight. But before he could even draw a breath, the shadowy figures had moved in. They surged from the corners of the alley, their faces obscured in darkness, figures that felt like ghosts with something sinister lurking at their core. Michael's heart raced. What do they want? Panic shot through him like a bullet. The girl from the crowd stepped forward, feeling bold. "You can't let them intimidate you, Michael." She stood like a soldier, fists raised, embodying the fragile courage of those who dared to dream big in a world intent on suppressing them. But the shadows were relentless. One figure, dressed in black from head to toe, stepped out slightly, revealing a smirk as twisted as the darkness around him. "You think you can take us all on, hero?" His voice dripped with mockery, leaving chills in its wake. That Michael's pulse quickened, anger churning within. "I don't know who you are," he replied, voice steady despite the tremor inside. but you will regret this." With that, a deep growl erupted from a figure behind him. Michael spun, only to be met with a flurry of movement, a black mass lunging at him like a predator on the hunt. He caught a glimpse of a knife gleaming, its edge reflecting the chaos around them. Time stretched as he braced himself, though he wasn't ready to back down. Suddenly, the crowd erupted into a cacophony, escalating the scene. People shouted, some pleading for an end, others demanding Michael take control. In the storm of voices, Michael strained to hear one that mattered among them all, that of Marcus, still battling fear to support him. The imminent clash felt tangible, a betrayal of all the doubts he'd fought against to stand here today. Before he could react, the girl shouted again, "Michael, don't let them win." Her voice cracked through the fog of impending chaos, igniting the fire deep within him. Then, as if the universe conspired against him, a piercing siren echoed in the distance. But would it be a savior or an even bigger threat? What would the sirens bring? With the thugs closing in and shadows lurking, uncertainty gripped Michael tighter than ever. Would he become a legend or just another statistic? The siren wailed like a banshee, slicing through the frenzied atmosphere. Michael's heart raced. Was this the relief he needed or the dark prelude to chaos? He could feel the tension coiling tighter. The shadows shifted, eyes narrowing, and he wondered if they felt it too, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. With a sudden burst of courage, Michael snapped into action. He sidestepped the looming attacker, striking with a quick jab to the man's ribs, then followed up with an uppercut that sent him sprawling. The crowd roared, a part of him lighting up at their raw energy, their fear morphing into belief. But before he could take a breath, the remaining thug lunged, desperation etched across his face. Michael braced himself, but instead of attacking, the thug stumbled. He tripped over his fallen partner, crashing into the ground and throwing a wave of dust and debris into the air. "Now's your chance," Marcus shouted from the side. With adrenaline surging, Michael struck while the iron was hot. He zigzagged through the commotion, targeting the others who began to close in. He felt buoyed by the presence of that girl, her fierce determination igniting something in him. Just as he planted his foot for another kick, the shadows erupted into a mass, surrounding him like locusts. It was suffocating, their energy coalescing into something dark and primal. Michael's stomach churned. He could taste the fear, metallic and sharp. He fought to keep his cool, but doubt crawled back in, scratching at his resolve. "Get out of here, Michael." Marcus's voice cut through the urgency, but the figures around him tightened their grip. An escalation of breaths sounded like a warning bell, the crowd's frantic murmurs blending into an unholy symphony. They're not backing down. In the midst of the chaos, Michael caught a glimpse of the girl's wide eyes, filled with something he couldn't afford to ignore. Faith. Did she see him differently? A hero? A force to be reckoned with? "You want to fight?" Michael shouted, channeling all his fear into fierce defiance. He pivoted to face the nearest shadow, its features hidden but presence palpable. "Then let us make it count." Before he could take a step, the leader of the shadows, still hidden in darkness, stepped forward, revealing a glinting blade in his hand. "You're brave, I'll give you that, but bravery can be a fool's game." Without a warning, he lunged toward Michael with lightning speed. All sense of time seemed to ebb away. Michael's senses sharpened, heightened by survival instinct. In a split-second decision, he ducked, feeling the breeze of the knife just inches from his face. The crowd gasped collectively, their fear palpable. Michael's heart thundered in his chest, but there was no time for second guesses. He spun around, taking the fight head-on. A barrage of movements, kicks, punches, and rolls became his dance as he evaded and retaliated. The sirens grew louder, almost drowning out the chaos, but they weren't here yet. Would they save him, or seal his fate? Suddenly, a chilling laugh erupted from the leader, echoing off the narrow alley walls. "You're entertaining, I'll give you that," he said, "but you don't know what you're messing with." In that moment, Michael's mind tore through what he understood about these figures. There was something bigger beneath the surface. He had to learn what he was really fighting against. As he landed a punch, he caught a glimpse of the girl's eyes again, hope masking her fear. And then, without warning, darkness erupted. The background noise faded, and a piercing light washed over them, blinding everyone in the alley. Michael's heart sank. The sirens were crashing into reality. But what waited beyond that light? The crowd fell silent, and he wondered if the truth that awaited them would be more terrifying than the shadows that haunted the alley. What would the sirens reveal? As the light enveloped the scene, something told him this fight was only just beginning. The sirens wailed like a chorus of warning bells, their urgency slicing through the chaos. The blinding lights flooded the alley, catching faces illuminated in raw fear and a desperate longing for change. Michael stood amidst the shadows and thugs, a flickering determination in his chest. His breath was ragged, heart pounding like a drum echoing across the walls of his mind. What awaited him beyond that piercing light? Would they see him as a threat, or something more? The phalanx of police officers burst onto the scene, faces grim and ready. Their shouts tangled with the fading echoes of the fading conflict. Everyone stepped back. Get away from the alley. As they moved, the energy shifted like a tide, washing away some of the tension that had gripped him. Maybe they were here to set things right. Maybe this was his moment. But the thugs, realizing the game had changed, snapped back to life. Run! One shouted, scrambling backward. The others followed suit, a panic-induced scramble, propelled away from the flashing lights and their threat of consequence. They melted into the shadows without a sound, leaving Michael with the remnants of the chaos, the breath of disbelief hanging thick in the air. And then, silence. The sirens faded, the lights dimmed, and he stood there, breathless. Michael? The voice sliced through the stillness, and he turned to find Marcus breaking through the crowd, eyes wide with concern. In that moment, a rush of gratitude surged through Michael. Here stood his friend, the reminder that he wasn't alone, not in this fight. You were amazing. You took them on. A small smile broke through the tension, and the crowd murmured in disbelief, the punchy reality of what they had just witnessed slowly sinking in. Some even stepped closer, a flicker of recognition sparking in their eyes. Michael's heart felt heavier, but lighter at the same time. He had fought for something larger than himself tonight, fought not only for survival, but for a new identity, one wrought from the depths of despair into something recognizable. As the police secured the area, one officer approached him, shaking his head slightly. That was reckless, jumping into a situation like that. You could have gotten yourself seriously hurt. But there was a hint of respect in that voice, and Michael could feel it coursing through him like the remnants of adrenaline. Why don't you let us take care of things from here? No, this is my fight, not yours, Michael asserted, feeling the warmth of determination cocoon him again. He straightened, memories of laughter and mockery fading into the back of his mind. I've faced my demons. He turned toward the crowd, their faces awash of awe and realization. The young man he had saved stood among them, nodding in understanding, his expression shifting from fear to something close to admiration. Thank you, Michael, he said, stepping forward. You showed us what bravery looks like. They were interconnected now. Each shared moment had forged something new. Michael felt invincible, not as an individual, but as part of a collective. The police gathered the details, but as the newly entwined crowd began to disperse, one voice rang out from behind him. It was the girl, the one with the courage to stand tall against fear. You don't have to go back to the alley. You're not just a memory, you're real. Her words fell like raindrops, seeping into his thoughts. No, but my journey doesn't end here. I need to help others find their way, Michael responded, feeling the purpose emanate from his core, stronger than before. Then let us do it together, she replied, smiling, hope illuminating her face. As the crowd thinned, Michael caught a glimpse of the city skyline. In the flicker of streetlights, shadows morphed into something new, a chance to rebuild not just his life, but the lives of others. Yeah, together, he echoed, embracing the hope blossoming around him. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. This is just the beginning. You've got so much left in you. Michael looked around at the faces gazing back, some still unsure, but many ignited with a zest to move forward. Every story, every battle clawed back from darkness, they would fuse into a tapestry of change. Life surged through him as he set out from the alley, shoulders squared, breathing in the crisp air filled with the promise of possibility. And he knew, deep down, that the journey ahead would be a wild race of its own. Together, they would outrun the shadows, turning the laughter of mockery into a chorus of belonging, bravery, and hope. And he wouldn't let them down this time. Make sure to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is your moment to show your support. Smash the like button now. Help feed that algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories about Michael's future, and where this journey might take him. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us build a story together and embark on this journey into the light.